You are not stuck. You are not incapable. You are not too late. But what you are, if you're being honest, is in your own way. And the moment you realize that is the moment everything can change, because self-sabotage is a choice. It may not feel like one. It may feel like the anxiety, the overthinking, the procrastination, the perfectionism are all just happening to you, but they're not. You're choosing them, and as long as you keep choosing them, you're choosing to stay where you are. Here's the hard truth. Every time you delay taking action because you don't feel ready, you're choosing safety over growth. Every time you rewrite the same paragraph in your business plan for the fifth time instead of pitching the actual idea, you're choosing fear over progress. And every time you tell yourself the timing isn't right, that you're just too busy, or that you need more clarity, what you're really saying is, I don't trust myself to take the next step. That's not strategy. That's sabotage dressed up as preparation. The reason this is so important to understand is because if you don't take ownership of the choices you're making, you'll keep calling them circumstances. You'll keep saying, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't have time, or I just need to figure things out. When in reality, you're delaying your own momentum. You're slowing yourself down and then wondering why nothing is changing. It's like pressing the gas and the brakes at the same time and blaming the car for not moving. People talk a lot about mindset, but here's what they don't tell you. Mindset is a decision. It's not a buzzword. It's not a vision board. It's the conscious moment where you either act in alignment with your goals or you don't. That's it. Every day, you're either reinforcing your vision or reinforcing your excuses. And no one else is responsible for which one you choose. Not your boss, not your partner, not your team, you, self. Sabotage doesn't look dramatic. It's subtle, it's logical, it makes sense in the moment. That's why it's so dangerous. It looks like giving yourself more time to research instead of executing. It looks like telling yourself you'll make that difficult phone call tomorrow. It looks like obsessing over your logo colors instead of building the actual offer. It sounds like I'm just trying to get it right. But underneath that perfectionism is a fear of being judged, of failing, of not being good enough. And that fear is running your decisions. The key to change isn't some magic morning routine or new productivity hack. The key is radical responsibility. You have to be willing to call yourself out in real time. You have to recognize when you're negotiating with your potential. You have to hear that internal voice saying, let's wait, and respond with, no, we're going. You have to stop outsourcing your power to fear. Here's the shift. Instead of asking, why am I stuck? Ask, where am I playing small on purpose? Where am I choosing comfort over calling? Where am I making the familiar more important than the future I say I want? Because you don't get to have both. You don't get to hold onto your excuses and reach your next level. You're going to have to let go. You're going to have to choose discomfort on purpose. That's what growth is. So what would it look like if you stopped getting in your own way, if you showed up for your commitments even when you didn't feel ready? If you moved with speed, not because you had all the answers, but because you trusted yourself to figure it out, that version of you, the one who takes ownership, who moves decisively, who doesn't negotiate with fear is already in you. You're just not choosing her yet. The good news, you can start now. You don't need permission. You don't need more time. You don't need to be more confident. You just need to decide that self-sabotage is no longer an option. You've been the problem, but that also means you're the solution. Confusion isn't a condition, it's a result. It's what happens when you haven't committed to getting clear, and clarity is a decision. It's not something that just arrives one day like a package on your doorstep. It's something you have to create on purpose. The truth is, most people stay confused because it's safer than being decisive. When you're unclear, you get to avoid action. You get to say, I'm still figuring it out, and stall the very growth you say you want. But the longer you live in confusion, the longer you delay momentum. And if you're not moving, you're falling behind. Clarity starts with honesty. What do you really want? Not what sounds good, not what people expect, not what you think is realistic. What do you actually want to build, become, experience? Most people haven't answered that question because they're afraid the answer might require more from them than they feel ready to give, so they stay vague, they talk in circles. They float from one idea to the next, looking for the path that feels easiest instead of committing to the one that's aligned. But you can't build something meaningful from a place of confusion. You can't scale a business, lead a team, or design your life if your foundation is foggy. You know what destroys confusion faster than anything? Decisions, specific, intentional, aligned decisions. When you get clear on your goals, your priorities, and your values, the noise dies down. You stop wasting time on distractions because you know what deserves your attention. You stop overthinking because your next step is obvious. You stop asking everyone else what they think because you trust your own vision. That's what clarity gives you, and that's why it's powerful. But let's talk about why people avoid it. Clarity removes your excuses. When you're clear, you no longer have the luxury of saying, "I don't know." You do know, which means if you're not doing it, it's no longer about confusion. It's about avoidance. And that's uncomfortable because now it's on you. Clarity eliminates blame. It demands ownership. You either show up for what you want or you don't. There's no hiding behind the fog. That's why clarity is a leadership skill. It's not just about personal development, it's about performance. Whether you're leading a team or leading yourself, your ability to communicate clearly, plan decisively, and act with intention is what separates the amateurs from the professionals. Confused leaders create confused cultures. Vague plans produce vague results, and indecision, it's a productivity killer. You cannot execute at a high level while second, guessing every move. Clarity allows you to shift from reactive to proactive. You stop responding to everything around you and start creating what you want on purpose. So how do you get clear? You ask better questions. You stop trying to make everyone happy. You remove distractions. You sit with yourself and you define what success actually looks like for you. You write it down, you build goals that are measurable, you set timelines, you create structure, because the more specific you get, the more powerful your execution becomes. Clarity doesn't mean you have every answer. It means you know what you're aiming for and you're willing to move forward even while refining along the way. It means you're anchored to your purpose, not just drifting with your feelings. It means you're willing to make hard decisions faster because you trust your process. That's what creates momentum, not motivation, not endless journaling, not waiting for the right time. Clarity. Structure, direction, and here's the truth that most people don't want to admit. Clarity is your responsibility. It's not your mentor's job. It's not your leader's job. It's not your partner's job. No one is coming to hand you a fully formed vision and a step-by-step plan. You have to build it, you have to own it, you have to protect it. If you're confused, it's because you haven't gotten honest, specific, and intentional enough yet, and that's fixable, but only if you stop entertaining chaos. If you want to grow, you have to simplify, you have to eliminate what's not aligned, you have to make decisions faster, and most importantly, you have to stop pretending you're confused when what you really are is afraid to commit. Clarity will cost you your excuses, but it will give you your future, and that's a trade you should be willing to make every single time. Motivation feels good, but it's unreliable. It shows up when it wants, disappears when it wants, and always leaves you hanging when things get hard. If you're waiting to feel motivated before you take action, you're already losing, because the people who are winning, the people who are building, growing, scaling, performing, they are not depending on motivation. They're building their lives around discipline. Discipline doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't check your mood. It's not waiting for the stars to align. It shows up, rain or shine, because it's driven by commitment, not emotion. Here's the problem with motivation. It tricks you into thinking that your progress is tied to your energy, that if you're tired, overwhelmed, uninspired, then it's okay to back off. It whispers, just wait until tomorrow, and makes it sound like self-care. But the truth is, most of the time, you don't need rest, you need structure, you don't need another break, you need better habits, and no one wants to hear that because discipline isn't sexy, it's not loud. It's not exciting, it's consistent, it's daily, it's a quiet, constant choice to do what needs to be done, especially when you don't want to do it. Discipline is what separates the talkers from the doers. Everyone says they want the result. Very few are willing to do what it takes day after day to earn it, because that's what success actually is. It's boring, it's repetition, it's waking up early when no one's watching. It's holding the standard when the initial excitement is gone. It's making the hard choice over and over again, without applause, without recognition, just because you said you would. People love to chase the next big idea, the next spark, the next hit of inspiration. But that's not how real growth works. Growth comes from mastering the fundamentals. It comes from doing the reps, from following through on the plan long after the feeling that made you create it is gone. That's what high performers do. They don't chase the mood. They follow the system. They build routines that support their goals. They don't wait to feel ready. They just get started and then they keep going. That's what makes discipline powerful. It builds momentum. When you're disciplined, you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop asking if you feel like it. You just do it. And because you're consistent, you start seeing results. Those results build confidence. That confidence fuels more action, and suddenly you're not relying on motivation. You're driven by progress. That's a completely different game, and it's the only one that actually leads to mastery. But let's be clear, discipline is not about punishment. It's not about being harsh or rigid. It's about alignment. It's about deciding what matters to you and then structuring your life around that decision. It's about choosing your future over your feelings, because the truth is your feelings will lie to you. They will try to protect you, keep you comfortable, keep you small. Discipline is what keeps you moving through the resistance. It's the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. So how do you build discipline? You simplify. You eliminate the distractions. You stop trying to do 10 things at once and focus on the one or two that actually move the needle. You create routines, block time, set boundaries, you make a plan, and then you follow it, not perfectly, not without resistance, but consistently, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, that's when it counts the most. And when you fail, and you will, you don't throw the whole thing away, you reset, you recommit, you get back on track the very next day. That's discipline. It's not all or nothing. It's not about perfection. It's about resilience. It's about getting back up again and again, no matter how many times you slip. Motivation will never do that for you, but discipline will. You don't need to feel inspired every day to build something meaningful. You need a plan, you need standards, you need non-negotiables. You need to show up for yourself whether you feel like it or not, because when you stop making your success optional, it becomes inevitable. And that shift from chasing motivation to mastering discipline is the difference between staying stuck and stepping into your potential. Overwhelm feels real, but more often than not, it's a symptom of disorganization, not capacity. You're not doing too much, you're managing it poorly. The meetings, the tasks, the goals, the responsibilities, they're not the problem. The problem is the lack of structure, the absence of clear priorities, the constant switching from one thing to the next without intention. And until you fix the way you're operating, the feeling of overwhelm will follow you no matter how much you try to cut back. It's easy to say, "I'm overwhelmed," and use it as a blanket statement to justify inaction, burnout, or emotional shutdown. But what does that really mean? Usually, it means you don't know what to do next. Your to-do list is endless, scattered across sticky notes, emails, and half-finished thoughts. You're reacting instead of responding. You're spending time on things that feel urgent instead of what's truly important. You're checking boxes but making no progress. That's not overload. That's a systems issue. People love to romanticize the idea of being too busy, but it's often a cover for poor boundaries and lack of clarity. If your calendar is packed but your goals are still unmet, you're not productive. You're distracted. You've said yes too many times without asking what it's costing you. You're multitasking your way into mediocrity. And instead of fixing the root issue, you're treating your exhaustion like it's inevitable. It's not. It's a result of saying, I'll just do it all, instead of getting organized enough to delegate, automate, or eliminate. Being organized is not about color, coded folders, and aesthetically pleasing planners. It's about decision making. It's about getting clear on what matters most, mapping out the steps, assigning deadlines, and sticking to them. It's about choosing productivity over chaos. When you're organized, you don't wake up in panic mode wondering what to focus on. You know, you've already decided. That kind of clarity doesn't just lower your stress, it accelerates your progress. You don't need fewer goals, you need a better system for managing them. You don't need more time, you need better priorities. Every high performer understands this. The difference between stress and progress is structure. When you take time to plan your week before it starts, when you break big goals into small, actionable steps, when you block the non-negotiables, everything gets lighter. Your brain stops spinning because it has direction. Your calendar becomes your partner, not your enemy. The hardest part is admitting that disorganization is a choice. It's not your personality type. It's not just how you are. It's a habit, and habits can be changed. It might feel more comfortable to stay scattered and tell yourself you're just overwhelmed right now, but that comfort comes with a cost: your goals, your peace of mind, and ultimately your potential. So if you're tired of feeling like you're constantly behind, the first step isn't doing more. It's getting organized. Start by auditing everything you're doing. What's essential? What's noise? Where are you spending time that doesn't align with your outcomes? Eliminate or delegate everything that doesn't need to be yours. Then take your core priorities and build them into your schedule, not in theory, on the calendar. If it's not scheduled, it doesn't exist. You need to see your time, control your time, and protect your time. That's where clarity starts. Organization also means saying no. It means protecting your focus from interruptions and unnecessary commitments. You cannot do deep work if your day is full of shallow distractions. You cannot lead effectively if you're constantly reacting to other people's priorities instead of owning your own. Get ruthless about your time. Your energy is not infinite. Treat it like it matters. If you want to perform at a higher level, if you want to scale your impact, if you want to feel calm instead of chaotic, you have to stop using overwhelm as a crutch. You're not buried under too many tasks. You're buried under indecision, under lack of planning, under disconnection from what actually matters. That's fixable, but only if you decide to stop being available to everything and start being committed to the right things. Overwhelm ends where ownership begins. You don't need more hours in the day. You need more discipline in how you use them. Get organized, get clear, and watch how fast things change. Readiness is a myth. If you're waiting to feel ready before you take action, you'll be waiting forever. The truth is, most people don't move forward not because they lack capability, but because they think they need more time, more confidence, more certainty. But action is what creates all of those things. You don't get confidence by standing still. You get confidence by doing, failing, adjusting, and doing again. Execution is what builds momentum. And the people who win are the ones who stop negotiating with their fears and start moving before they feel ready. This idea that everything has to be perfect before you launch, speak up, apply, invest, or lead, that mindset will keep you small for years. Because readiness isn't a light switch. It's not something that turns on when everything aligns. It's a decision, a commitment, a willingness to move in the face of doubt. If you look at anyone who's built something remarkable, who's created real impact, they didn't wait until they were certain. They acted when they were scared, they launched when they had questions, they led when they didn't have all the answers, because they understood that execution is what brings clarity, not the other way around. When you choose to delay, you convince yourself it's strategy. You say, I'm just being thoughtful. I want to get it right. I need more time to prepare. But what's really happening is that fear is running your decision making. You're trying to avoid discomfort, judgment, rejection, failure. You think if you wait long enough, you'll somehow skip the hard parts, but you can't avoid the learning curve. You can't avoid criticism. You can't avoid mistakes. The only way through is through, and the longer you hesitate, the more stuck you feel, not because you're incapable, but because you're inactive. The irony is that by waiting to feel ready, you're reinforcing the very insecurities you're trying to avoid. You don't trust yourself to figure it out. You're placing more faith in fear than in your ability to grow. But the only way to build that trust is to prove to yourself over and over again that you can show up even when it's messy. Even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't go perfectly the first time, that proof only comes from execution. Think about the projects you've started and the ones you've shelved. The only difference between progress and paralysis is action. You didn't get more prepared, you just started, and once you started, you adjusted, you figured it out as you went. That's not unprofessional. That's how all great work begins. Nothing you launch will be your final version. Nothing you build will be perfect the first time, but if you keep holding back until it is, you're guaranteeing that nothing ever gets done. Execution is where confidence is built. Every time you follow through, even when you're nervous, you send a signal to yourself that you are capable, that you can rely on yourself, that you keep your word. Confidence doesn't come from hype. It comes from evidence, and the only way to gather that evidence is by taking action before you feel ready. There's a myth that successful people are fearless. They're not, they've just trained themselves to move anyway. They understand that readiness is a luxury, not a requirement. That waiting until the fear goes away is just another form of procrastination. So instead of asking, "Am I ready?" they ask, "What's the next best step I can take right now?" They focus on motion, not perfection, and because they keep moving, they keep growing. So if you're sitting on an idea, a goal, a decision, and telling yourself the timing isn't right, challenge that. Ask yourself, what would I do if I trusted myself to figure it out? What if readiness wasn't the requirement? What if commitment was? That shift changes everything. Because once you commit to execution, you release the pressure to be perfect and give yourself permission to get better through action. You don't need more research. You don't need another course. You don't need 10 people to approve your plan. You need to move, take the first step, launch the thing, have the conversation, make the call, put yourself in the room because clarity, confidence, and readiness, they are not prerequisites, they are byproducts of action. Execute before you feel ready, and trust that readiness will meet you on the other side.